Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. It's all about building those good habits you've been wanting.
Absolutely.
We've got some really awesome sources lined up for you today.
Yeah.
3 WikiHow articles on forming good habits,
Go.
healthy eating habits,
Mhm.
and fixing the habit of leaving things unfinished.
Interesting.
Then we've got a WikiHow article on creating good study habits, and to top it all off, a YouTube interview with a habit and procrastination expert.
That's awesome. I always find it so fascinating to combine practical advice from those WikiHow articles with the psychology behind how habits work,
Right.
getting to those aha moments that make it more than just a to-do list.
It is,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like giving you a backstage pass to your own brain.
I love that.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with why habits are so important in the first place.
Well, I think they're so important because they're like the invisible architecture of our lives, you know? They shape everything from our health and productivity to our relationships and, just well-being as a whole.
Yeah, and speaking of well-being, those WikiHow articles had some really great advice on setting goals, especially when it comes to forming healthy habits. It's not just about saying, I want to eat better. It's about getting specific, like, I'm going to swap out my afternoon soda for sparkling water every day this week.
I love that example because vague goals lead to vague results,
Yes.
right? The WikiHow articles stress those SMART goals, but they didn't just define them.
Right.
They got into the nitty-gritty of why each element matters.
Yes, and how making your goals action-oriented actually breaks things down into steps that you can really do. Like instead of lose weight, it's walk for 30 minutes 3 times a week.
Exactly, and it's not just about the what of the goal. It's about the why, your motivation.
Yes.
Those articles were packed with tips on tapping into what truly drives you to make a change.
Yeah, because let's be honest, willpower only gets you so far. You've got to have a reason that gets you fired up, something that makes you want to just jump out of bed and tackle those goals. I know for me, visualizing how much more energy I'll have if I'm eating healthier and exercising is a huge motivator.
Absolutely. And one thing that resonated with me from those WikiHow articles was writing those motivations down.
Oh, yeah?
Because when those inevitable moments of doubt creep in, you can look back on that and be like, oh, this is why I'm doing it.
It's like your own personal cheerleader,
Yes, exactly.
in your back pocket.
Speaking of cheerleaders, I have to tell you, this expert we're about to talk about blew my mind when it came to understanding distraction. They said something like 90% of distractions aren't external, they're internal.
It's not our phones or notifications that are the real culprits, but those uncomfortable emotions that we're trying to escape. It's that boredom, loneliness, stress, or even guilt that makes us reach for that snack or scroll through social media or procrastinate on that project. It was a total light bulb moment for me. I think it's so easy to blame those external triggers, but the real work starts with, understanding what's going on inside.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed what your go-to distraction is when you're feeling a certain way?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
For me, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I tend to just dive headfirst into cleaning.
Oh,
My
wow.
brain is like, nope, can't deal with that right now.
Mm.
Let's organize these spice drawers instead.
Interesting.
The expert actually shared their personal experience with overeating and how it wasn't about physical hunger. It was about trying to soothe, difficult emotions.
Yeah.
And once they learned to manage those emotions in a healthier way, their relationship with food completely changed.
Wow, that's powerful. And it makes you realize that forming good habits and avoiding distractions isn't just about surface level changes.
Right.
It's about understanding the deeper psychology at play.
Yeah.
So how do we take all of this fascinating information and actually apply it to our lives?
Well, that's where those WikiHow articles come back in with some really practical tips.
Yeah.
One of the biggest takeaways for me was the emphasis on starting small.
Yes. I love that you don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. It's about making those small, incremental changes that feel manageable and sustainable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like swapping out your soda for sparkling water.
Yeah.
It's one small change, but over time it makes a big difference. Or if you want to start like a meditation practice instead of aiming for an hour a day, why not start with like 5 minutes each morning?
I am so guilty of trying to do too much too soon.
Yeah.
It's like I set myself up for failure before I even begin. But these WikiHow articles reminded me that it's okay to start small and build from there. It's like they're giving you permission to be kind to yourself in the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of kindness, those articles also had some great tips on using rewards to stay motivated.
Yes.
It's about celebrating those small wins along the
Yeah.
way and making the journey enjoyable,
Yeah. It's like giving yourself a little pat on the back for a job well done.
Exactly. It
Okay.
doesn't have to be anything big. Maybe it's a relaxing bath after a long day of sticking to your healthy eating plan or buying yourself that book you've been wanting after a
Yeah.
week of consistent workouts. And speaking of consistency, the articles also highlighted the importance of using cues to trigger those new habits.
Oh, yeah, like connecting your new habit to something you already do regularly. It's like piggybacking on an existing routine.
Exactly. Like, let's say you want to make it a habit to drink more water. You could try placing a full glass of water on your nightstand before you go to bed, so it's the first thing you see when you wake up.
Or if you're trying to be more mindful throughout the day, you could set a reminder on your phone to take a few deep breaths every hour. It's like creating those little nudges that keep you on track.
And those little nudges can make a world of difference.
Mm.
But you know what happens when those internal distractions we talked about earlier start creeping in? Even with the best intentions, we can still find ourselves getting sidetracked.
It's so true. You know that WikiHow article on dealing with unfinished projects had some interesting advice on managing your environment to help you stay focused.
Oh, like creating a dedicated workspace or minimizing distractions in your surroundings.
Exactly. It's amazing how much our environment can impact our ability to focus. But sometimes, even with a perfectly organized workspace, those internal triggers can still sabotage our best efforts.
That's where the expert's concept of effort packs comes in. It's such a brilliant strategy for dealing with those moments when, we're tempted to give in to distraction.
Effort packs. Tell me more.
Okay, so an effort pact is basically a pre-commitment you make to yourself to make those undesirable behaviors just a little bit harder to do. It's like putting up a little roadblock between you and that distraction.
I'm starting to see the light here. Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you're trying to cut back on social media, but you find yourself constantly reaching for your phone. You could create an effort pact by putting your phone in another room while you're working or using like one of those app blockers.
Ooh, those app blockers can be tough love, but so effective. It's
Yeah.
like you're taking away the temptation before it even has a chance to take hold.
Exactly. And sometimes just the act of making that effort pact is enough to shift your mindset. It's like sending a signal to yourself that you're serious about this change.
It's like a little declaration of independence from your distractions.
I love that. And speaking of declarations, one of the WikiHow articles suggested telling other people about your goals as a way to, stay accountable.
Oh, yeah, the power of social support. It's like having your own personal cheering squad rooting you on.
And sometimes that external accountability can be just what we need, you know, especially when we're feeling tempted to give up.
It's like having a friend hold you to your word, or even just a gentle nudge back on track when you need it.
Exactly. And that social support can come from anywhere. A friend, a family member, an online community. It's all about finding those people who encourage and inspire you on your journey.
You know, it's funny because sometimes we think we have to do everything on our own, but there's something really powerful about sharing our goals and struggles with others.
Absolutely. It's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
I love that. And, as we're talking about this, I'm realizing those WikiHow articles were really great at reminding us to be patient with ourselves throughout this process.
Yes, they emphasize that, forming new habits takes time and effort, and that there will inevitably be slip-ups along the way.
Because let's face it, none of us are perfect. It's about progress, not perfection, right?
Exactly. And those slip-ups don't mean that we've failed. It just means we're human. The key is to learn from them and keep moving forward.
Speaking of moving forward, one thing that really stood out to me from the healthy eating article was the idea of tracking your progress.
Oh, yes. They suggested using a journal or an app or even just a simple calendar to keep track of, your wins, big or small.
It's like creating a visual reminder of how far you've come. And let's be honest, sometimes we need that little boost of motivation to keep us going.
Yeah, it's so easy to get discouraged when we're focused on how much further we have to go.
Yeah.
But tracking our progress helps us appreciate how much we've already accomplished.
Now that we're talking about tracking progress, it reminds me of that WikiHow article on study habits. It's like all of these principles we've been discussing apply to any area of life where we're trying to create positive change.
That's such a great point. The Study Habits article emphasized the importance of designated study time and space.
Yes, it's like creating that structure and consistency that we've been talking about. But instead of a workout routine or a healthy eating plan, it's a study schedule.
Exactly. And just like with any other habit, it's about starting small and gradually building up your study time.
And finding what works best for you. Some people thrive in quiet libraries, while others need a little background noise.
The key is to experiment and figure out what helps you focus and learn most effectively.
It's funny because even though we're talking about study habits, I'm realizing that the expert's advice on dealing with procrastination is relevant here too.
You mean the 10-minute rule?
Exactly. Because let's be honest, procrastination is a universal struggle, whether it's putting off studying, cleaning the house, or tackling that big work project.
And that 10-minute rule can be a game changer. It's amazing how often just starting is the hardest part.
It's like tricking your brain into thinking, hey, this isn't so bad after all.
And often that initial 10 minutes turns into 20, then 30, and before you know it, you're in the flow.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the psychology of habit formation to practical strategies for building better habits, avoiding distractions, and even improving our study habits.
But there's one final concept from the expert's interview that I think is worth highlighting. It's this idea of identity-based habits.
Oh yeah, this is a good one. It's like taking all of this a step further and really integrating those positive changes into who we are at our core.
Exactly. It's about shifting your mindset from "I'm trying to "I am."
So instead of saying, I'm trying to eat healthier, you would say, I am a healthy eater.
Precisely. Or instead of "I'm trying to be more productive," it's "I am a productive person."
It's like stepping into that identity and allowing it to shape your thoughts, actions, and choices.
And that can be incredibly powerful. When you see yourself as someone who embodies those positive qualities, it becomes easier to make choices that align with that identity.
It's like creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. You believe it, so you become it.
Exactly. And as you start to live in alignment with your desired identity, those habits naturally fall into place.
Because they're no longer something you're forcing yourself to do. They're an expression of who you are.
And that's where the real magic happens. It's about moving beyond willpower and relying on the power of your own self-image.
Wow, that is powerful. I'm already starting to think about how I can apply this to my own life.
Me too. It's such a simple concept, yet it has the potential to create profound change.
So as we wrap up this incredible deep dive, I want to encourage you, dear listener, to think about the identity you want to create for yourself. What kind of person do you want to be? What habits will support that vision? Because as we've learned today, you have the power to choose who you become.
And with the right mindset strategies and support, you can achieve anything you set your mind to.
Yeah, it's like leveling up your life. But instead of experience points, it's self-awareness and building habits that align with your true self.
I love that analogy. It's becoming the hero of your own story, and those habits are your superpowers.
And you don't even need special skills or equipment
Right.
to access them.
It's harnessing the power of your own mind
Yeah.
and using those strategies we talked about today.
So as we wrap up this deep dive today, what does this all mean for you, our listeners? We went deep into the psychology of forming habits, learned practical ways to build those better habits and avoid distractions, and we even talked about how to improve study habits.
And most importantly, we learned that you can shape your own identity through the habits you choose.
It's like we gave you a toolbox
Yeah.
filled with everything you need to make some positive changes.
Yeah.
So what's one small change you can make today to start building a good habit or overcoming a distracting behavior?
Maybe it's setting a timer for 10 minutes to work on something you've been putting off, or creating an effort pact to minimize distractions, or even just writing down the reasons why you want to change.
Remember, even those small steps can lead to big progress over time.
And as you start seeing those positive results, it'll motivate you even more and inspire you to keep going.
So that wraps up our deep dive into forming good habits and avoiding distractions. We hope you learned some valuable insights today and feel ready to make some really awesome changes in your life.
Keep learning, keep growing, and never underestimate the power you have.
Until next time, keep diving deep.